started with your homework. Alright, so you were to read pages 109 through 114, and on page 109, Thought Provoker 1 and 2. So we'll go ahead and we'll do those first before we get to the review questions. On page 109, Thought Provoker number 1. Many of your skeletal and smooth muscles can rest at night when you are asleep. However, your heart, which is made of cardiac tissue, must beat continuously. How does cardiac muscle get sufficient rest then? Alright, so just thinking about it, because your cardiac muscle or your heart can't stop ever, otherwise you'll die. So when does it get rest? It actually is designed to rest in between beats. So as your heart is pumping, it'll rest in between each of those beats. Now you might not think, well, that's not a lot of rest. No, but your cardiac muscle is designed to work that way, so that way your heart will keep pumping, because if your heart stops pumping, then you're dead. So that's part of the reason why it's designed to work that way. Alright, number 2. What is the major similarity and appearance between a skeletal muscle tissue and cardiac muscle tissue? Hopefully you noticed this yesterday when I was talking about it. Both are striated or striped. Alright, so you were to answer on page 114 as well, questions 1 and 2. So flipping over to that section. Alright, so number 1 and 2. What is the organ in which you developed until you were born? Alright, that is the uterus or the womb. And then number 2, what structure allowed you to float freely in the warm fluid surrounding you before you were born? That was the umbilical cord. Alright, you can go ahead and put your homework away, and then for your classwork, what I want you to do is I want you to copy the bold terms and definitions from page 105 through 107. So 105 through 107. I want you to copy them 5 times though. There's not that many on those pages. As you flip through them, you'll notice, oh, these are pretty simple and pretty easy. So page 105 through 107, the bold terms and their definitions 5 times each, because there's not that many. It shouldn't take you that long. So spend about 5 to 10 minutes. Probably won't take you 10 minutes. So about 5 to 10 minutes to go ahead and copy down those bold terms and their definitions. So go ahead and pause the video and then come on back. Alright, well, assuming that you're still with me, I'm going to assume that you've gone ahead and copied down those bold terms and definitions. Let's go ahead and let's review just a little bit over it. And I think I want to go back just a little bit farther and talk about the endocrine system again, because I know that section's a little bit harder for some people. So let's go ahead and let's go over that. So remember, what's the purpose of the endocrine system? Remember, it's certain internal body functions and long-term body activities, and then long-term changes. Those are the 2 purposes of the endocrine system. What is the nickname for a hormone? I told you to mark this the other day. Chemical messenger. Good. Alright, you're thinking about the 6 different glands that you need to know on the inside of your body. Which gland is known as the master gland? The pituitary gland. What does it control, or what are the 3 main things that it works with? Growth, your metabolism, and then also the reproductive system. Oh, sorry, not metabolism, I'm thinking of another one. So growth, your reproductive system, and the body's water balance. Sorry, I was thinking of the next question with the other hormone. So not metabolism. So which hormone does control metabolism? Thyroxine. Good job. What is the hormone, what is the gland that makes the hormone thyroxine? It's in your neck area. Thyroid. Good job. Alright, what are the glands that work with the thyroid to control your body's calcium in the blood? They're next to the thyroid, behind it technically. Parathyroid, that's it. Alright, what are the glands that are responsible for the body's fight or flight response? Your adrenal glands, that's it. What's the name for the hormone that they secrete? Adrenaline, and then what's the other name for them? Epinephrine, that's it. Alright, so what is the name for the glands then that are in your pancreas? They secrete 2 hormones to control blood sugar. What's the name for those glands? Islets of Langerhans. Good. What's the name for the hormone that takes the sugar out of your blood? Insulin. What's the one that puts it into your blood? Glucagon. Perfect. Alright, what disease can you get, or what condition? I guess it's not really a disease, because you can't catch it, but what condition can you get if you don't have enough insulin in your body, or if your body doesn't respond to it properly? Technically it is a disease, you just can't catch it. Diabetes mellitus in particular. Alright, what is the name for the gland that controls waking and sleeping inside your brain? The pineal, that's it. Alright, thinking about the reproductive system. What are the main organs of the reproductive system? What do we call them? Gonads. What do we call the female reproductive organs? Ovaries. What do you call the male reproductive organs? I drew a blank when I was asking. The gonads, or the male reproductive organs. The testes. Now, what is the reproductive cells that the ovaries make? Eggs. What about the male reproductive cell that the testes make? Sperm. Perfect. Alright, that's where we left off with some reviews and with the endocrine and reproductive system. Now let's go over with your classwork. Alright, what do you call the group of cells working together to perform a particular function in the body? Tissues. That's it. Aren't there 4 different types of tissue? What is the tissues that fit tightly together to form protective barriers? Epithelial. Good job. Make sure you are pronouncing it correctly. So epithelial. So not epithelial. I know it looks similar, but epithelial. Alright, what is the tissue that provides motion? That's muscle tissue. What is the tissue that your book described it as has the most versatility. I cannot talk this morning. But it connects the different parts of your bones and your body together. What do we call that one? Versatility. Now I can say it. But what do we call that type of connective tissue? So make note that connective tissue has the most versatility, but it also connects different parts of your body together. We talked about how there's different types of connective tissue. We'll come back to the muscle tissue as well. So what is the last type of tissue that's used to conduct impulses to and from all the parts of your body? Nerve tissue. We also talked about how there's 3 different types of muscle tissue. What's the muscle tissue that are part of your skeletal system to where you can, I'm getting my terms, I'm saying them as I'm trying to ask them. What is the type of tissue that is part of your conscious control muscles? So skeletal muscles. So these are your voluntary muscles. What is the muscle that's going to contract whether or not you think about it? Like it's in your organs. Smooth muscle tissue. And then what do you call the muscle of your heart? That's skeletal muscle. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of my next question. Cardiac muscle. And then what is the similarities between skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle? They're both striated, or they have that striped appearance. Alright, so make note of the 3 different types. So you have skeletal muscle, you have cardiac muscle, and you have smooth muscle. Cardiac muscle, that's the one of your heart. Smooth muscle is involuntary muscles. And then your skeletal muscle, those are the ones that are your voluntary muscles, the ones that you work with your skeleton so that you can have movement. So those are like your biceps, your triceps, your deltoid, things like that. Alright, so we also talked about cells. So what's the smallest part of the body that can be considered alive? A cell. Alright, so that's basically all we talked about on Friday. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Talking about becoming you, or talking more in detail about how you grew from conception, or that beginning, into your adult, or into your body currently, and then into your adult version. Sorry, I forgot to set up my mouse. Alright, so becoming you. So you're not done growing yet as a junior higher. You're still going through your developmental stages and turning into an adult. But now it's talking about, in this section, becoming you. Where did you come from? You probably know that you came from your mom, or that you developed in your mom's womb, but you might not know exactly, okay, how did that occur? You might have understood, okay, I got some of my DNA or some of my genetic information from my dad, I got some from my mom, and then I grew in my mom's tummy. That's a lot of cases how we explain it to little kids, but you grew in your mom's womb technically, and then you were born. So you might not know exactly what was going on. So that's what this section is talking about. Right now, your body contains 30 trillion cells. That's a lot of cells. But whenever you started out, you were one single individual cell. So your cells on the inside, you have what's called DNA. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But that's the code that tells your body what you're going to look like and how to keep your body functioning properly. It determines your skin tone, determines your eye color, your hair color, whether your hair is curly or straight, whether or not you're right-handed or left-handed. All those things are determined in your DNA. Now some things, like if you go outside in the sun more, you might get a slightly darker shade, but that overall, what your average shade is determined in your DNA. whether or not you have slanted eyes or if you have round eyes, different things like that are determined by your DNA. So all of the characteristics of people we see in the world, a lot of cases they are determined in their DNA, those physical characteristics. Now sometimes people have bad things happen to them, like you might know someone who's gone off to war and they've had an arm cut off or a leg amputated or something like that. Alright, that's not part of DNA, but a lot of your major characteristics telling your body how to function and what characteristics you have, those are determined in your DNA or on the inside of your cells. So how does your body know, or where does your body get that DNA? You get half your information from your mom and half your information from your dad. So we've already talked about conception or fertilization with plants, so now this is what it's talking about now. That your mom donated an egg cell or that reproductive cell for the females, and your dad donated the sperm cell or the reproductive cell for the males. Together, they only had, each one only has half of the information or DNA for a person. So your mom donated half the DNA, and then your dad donated half the DNA. Together, they made up a fully formed cell with all of the genetic code, and that's where you get all of your characteristics. Then maybe that's why you might look more like your mom or more like your dad, or maybe you look like a mixing between them, or maybe you don't really look like either one. Sometimes it just determines on how the DNA express or show themselves. We call that conception or fertilization. So the union between the egg and the sperm cell is called conception in people or fertilization. So it's the same idea as what happens with plants. We just give it a little bit of a more special term because people are more special than plants. Does anyone remember why, thinking way back in your head, why are people considered more important than just regular plants and animals? Right, because they have the soul on the inside. Your book tells you what conception means. Go ahead and mark that underneath the picture of that first cell on page 109. So the union between an egg cell and a sperm cell is called conception or beginning. That's whenever we say that you are alive as an individual. Once you have half that DNA from your mom, half the DNA from your dad, together they make up a whole person. We say, okay, that is a whole new individual. It's not the mom, it's not the dad, so it's a whole new individual. We would say that's whenever you are alive at that point. So that is conception. So make a note of that. Conception or fertilization. Mark the italicized terms as well. Well, that phrase on page 109. This fertilization is the beginning of a new living person. Your life started at conception. That's whenever we say that's whenever you started as a person, whenever you got your full complete set of DNA or your full complete set of that genetic information. Alright, so just make a note, conception, fertilization, make a note of what conception is. Alright, so during that first week, your cells, you start off as one cell, you need to start growing right then and right there and start growing to get to help your body to become larger and fully formed. And even now, you're not fully formed yet. You're still growing and changing. So this started way back at conception, and now your body is growing and changing and growing and changing, and it won't stop probably till you're older, whenever you are a grown-up. Technically, it doesn't really stop until you're around 25. That's whenever they say, whenever the bone in your sternum oscillizes, and that's whenever a lot of doctors say you have fully stopped growing at that point. So you're going to be growing and changing for a while. But it starts way back here, just in that first individual cell with conception. Alright, so you have that first cell, it grows and then it divides into 2 cells. And then it grows again and divides into 4 cells, because that's where those 2 cells were. So if you start off with 1 cell, it'll grow and divide into 2 cells, and then they will each grow and divide into 4 cells, and then they will each grow and divide into their cells. So you can see how this very quickly starts to multiply and grow on the inside. Your body does it over and over and over again, trying to get the cells, to get a bunch of them, because your body knows it needs to start growing right then. You're just 1 cell, but it knows it needs a lot of cells. So it can make a brain, it can make your heart, it can make your skin, it can make your fingernails, it can make your eyes. It knows it needs to start growing right then and there for it. So your book points out as well, after about 3 days, you look like a ball or a cluster of cells. Your cells no longer act the exact same though. Your cells start to become more specialized. Some cells know that they're going to start changing into the digestive system. Some cells know they're going to be nerve tissue. Some cells know that they're going to be skin tissue. So because of that, they start to develop into different sections, and they start to develop into different types of tissue. So even after 3 days, your body is already changing with that first conception or first fertilized cell. It's starting to change and starting to turn into all the cells that you need in your body today. For a few days, you floated weightlessly in your mother's small dark womb or the uterus. Do you make a note though of the technical name for it? So the womb or the uterus. The Bible uses the word womb. That's the reason why your book is referencing it. Uterus is technically the name for it. So make a note of that. So uterus. By the end of the first week, you had attached yourself to your mother by burrowing into the lining of her uterus. This is supposed to happen. So that way you just don't float around on the inside of the womb. You could potentially get damaged that way. And so because of that, your body knows, okay, I need to hurry up and implant or embed into the uterus. No, you're not going to stay there, but it just needs an anchor point so that way it can grow more safely in that spot. So we're going to talk through what's going to happen through each of the stages. You don't have to know what happens at every single stage. I'll tell you what's important at the end, but just make sure you're following along. But your book does a great job helping you to explain what's going on in each section. And again, I'll tell you what you need to know for your exam coming up. Let's look really quick at the verse at the top of page 109. Your book's going to have several verses in this section. So let's look at that one though. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. What the psalmist is saying in that section is he's saying, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So even at these very few beginning days of your life, whenever you're just a tiny ball of cells, you are still fearfully and wonderfully made. Your cells know what to do, even though you're not thinking yet, you don't have a brain. Your cells know what they're doing, and they are getting ready, and they're already starting to grow and change and going ahead and making you fully formed, but they're not there yet. So they're still just too small because there's not enough cells yet. All right, let's see if there's anything else I need to talk about for this section. Nope. All right, flip the page and over to page 110. All right, so the second week. This is whenever you start to have your placenta form. So once you attach to the uterus, your mom starts to have a placenta form on the inside. Now remember, the uterus is her organ. She has a uterus on the inside, or the womb on the inside. Now, you need to have a special organ to attach you and the mom, well, you and your mom together. So that's what the placenta is. There's a structure that grows between you and your mom's body. The structure was developed into the placenta, kept you attached to the wall of the uterus, and allows gases exchange between your blood and your mom's blood. So in this picture, now again, these are an artist's drawings or an artist's renditions over what's happening for it. So this isn't an actual picture like how your books have, but it's a good illustration and illustration helps show it. So it's pointing out that, okay, here is the fertilized egg, or the zygote as we would call it. Technically, at this point, I believe it's called an embryo. But it's having it to where it is attached, you're starting to have that placenta form up around it. The placenta attaches your mom's uterus to your umbilical cord, and so that's what helps you just float on the inside of your mom's womb. You can't stay attached to the wall the whole time. You won't grow properly like that. So even though your cells knew, okay, for safety, we need to attach it to the uterus right now, that'll help form up on the placenta, and then you will be able to float again attached to the wall by the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is what attaches you to the placenta, and the placenta is what attaches you to the uterus. So just make a note, the placenta is not considered part of your body, and it's not considered part of your mom's body. It's an organ that specially forms during the development like this. Now once you're born, your mom doesn't need it either after that point, so your mom's body will get rid of it as well. But that placenta is kind of like an in-between organ. It's not part of your body and it's not part of her body. It's kind of like that bridge to help connect them. Your book points out that the placenta is designed to do several things on the inside. It's like your kidney. So remember, what does your kidneys do? It helps filter out your blood. Good job. So it removes waste from your blood and delivers them to your mother's blood for disposal. It's like your lungs. What do your lungs do? It absorbs oxygen and it gives off carbon dioxide. And your book points out as well that it also absorbs nutrients from your mom. So it's kind of like your digestive system. Now, keep in mind, your blood and your mom's blood never actually mix. Now, that's important because sometimes people have used that in the past to say that you're not a real person because your mom's blood and you're during this stage that your mom's blood and yours blood mix. Technically, that's not quite right. What happened is it's kind of how like in the placenta, it has little bitty finger-like projections, and your mom's blood will go around it. Now because of that, your blood at this stage and her blood never actually mix. They can actually have the oxygen and the carbon dioxide and the nutrients go across that membrane. Does anyone remember, well, I can't see if anyone actually knows or raises their hand, but hopefully if you think back and remember, what do we call that movement of particles? Now with water, we talked about specifically, what do we call the movement of water like into the root cells going through that thin membrane? That was osmosis. Anyone remember what's the other term for it if you're talking about something besides water? I think we talked about this in class. I don't think your vet talked about it yet. Diffusion. So that's what's happening, is where you're having the gases exchange from your mom's blood around your blood in the placenta. You're having the oxygen absorb into your blood, and then you give off carbon dioxide. And the mom's blood is donating, you're giving you nutrients, and you're giving off your waste products. So because of that, your blood and your mom's blood never actually mix. The placenta allows the blood to get next to each other so that you can have diffusion occur, but they never actually fully mix. And that's important, because sometimes people will say that that was a reason to get rid of the unborn baby in the past. They don't really use that reason anymore, but occasionally you hear people talk about it. That's the reason why, though, that's your book's making a big deal about it. All right. After 3 weeks, that's whenever you start to have your umbilical cord start to form. So by week 3, that's whenever you start to have the umbilical cord that connects your body to the placenta and the uterus. Now, you don't look like a person yet, but that's okay. You just don't have enough cells yet to have all your organs form. So you're still growing and dividing all those cells on the inside, and each of those cells is growing and dividing and turning into the proper organs that they're supposed to be. So you notice it looks kind of scary right now, and that's okay, it's fine. You'll notice though that it has kind of like a long structure on the inside. It looks kind of like a tail. Now it's not a tail. Sometimes people talk about that and they'll describe it as a tail. It's not a tail. What is the long part of your body that contains your spine on the inside of it? Your backbone or your spine, you have your backbone or your vertebral column. That's what's starting to form up on the inside, is your spine down here for it. So because of that, that's how come your body is a little bit longer than it is wide, right? And it's because you're having those nerves start to form up. So you have in your spinal cord, that's how come it looks a little bit longer on the inside. So you have your head forming, you have your organs forming, and this is the umbilical cord that's starting to form up on the inside. So making up, the umbilical cord is connecting your developing body to the placenta and the uterus. Oxygen nutrients from the mother's blood moved across the placenta to your body through the umbilical cord. Your heart started beating to deliver the oxygen nutrients throughout your tiny blood vessels. So even by 3 weeks, your heart is already beating. Now it's not fully formed yet because it's too small, but it's starting to beat already by this point. So even by 3 weeks, you're starting to have a little bitty heart on the inside that's pumping, trying to move your blood around on the inside. The umbilical cord allows you to float freely, so that way you have enough room to grow once you start developing your arms and your legs. All right, you make a note of the italicized at the top of page 110. During this 3rd week, your cells continue to divide, allowing you to grow longer. A large bulb formed at one end, showing where your head will develop. So your other end, your book points out, is still thin and curved. That's because your spine is developing. So that's how come your nerves are developing. That's how it makes your body look a little bit longer. But you can tell, okay, that's where the head is going to be. All right, 4th week. By 4th week, you were about the size of a pencil eraser. You weighed about 3,000 times more than you did at conception. You still don't really look like a baby. Your book points that out. That okay, you might look at it and think, ugh, I looked like that. Now again, this is an artist rendition or an artist drawing of it, but even if you look at the pictures in your book, you'll notice week 5, you don't look quite like you yet, and that's okay, but it's because the parts of you are still growing. Remember, you are made up of 30 trillion cells. You're not 30 trillion cells yet at this point. So you're having the cells growing and multiplying, so they're trying to form up those different organs and tissues. So it's not there yet, so it's okay, but you need all of those cells. All the cells are important. All right, so your book points out you don't look much like a baby. You have a large head and a small baby, small body. You kind of look like a comma. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, now again, this is the spine developing on the inside. So you have no bones yet. The tiny lumps of cartilage are growing where your arms and legs are formed. You have your nose and cheeks are starting to form up as well. You have the warm fluid around you though in your mom's womb to help protect you. So as your mom is still going about her day, she's still walking around, still driving, she might be doing chores. So as she's walking around, if stuff bumps into the womb, the fluid around you acts kind of like a giant pillow, protecting you so you don't get hurt and damaged on the inside. Remember, you're very, 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 very small. And so because of that, if you were to get bumped too hard, you might get hurt. So that's how come your mom's womb has a bunch of fluid on the inside, kind of like a giant cushion or a giant pillow to help protect you so that way you don't get hurt on the inside of it. So underneath your skin, your heart is still beating. So that way your heart is still pumping and still working. Now again, still not fully formed, but it's okay. You're just really, really small. As a side note, there's some people, they call these gills because it does look kind of like a fish gill. As a side note, those aren't gills. These don't even turn into your lungs. These develop into different parts of your body. So even though it looks like gills, they're not gills. So sometimes you hear people reference that. That's not gills, and they're not even part of your lungs. It doesn't even help you with breathing at all. All right, so 5 weeks. By the 5th week, you're about 12 millimeters or ½ inch long. This is whenever your hands and your arms and hands are spread and you have tiny fingers starting to appear. So in this picture, it looks kind of like paddles, but again, your hands are starting to form up. So inside your body, you have your lungs and trachea are forming along with your esophagus and stomach. Your major muscle groups are in place. So you have your muscles are starting to form on the inside. So you'll notice from this picture to this picture, you'll notice that he's bigger, or she is bigger. And so because of that, the cells are growing and multiplying, so they're making the major organs and they're making the major muscles. So they're trying to help you to grow, so that way, whenever you're born, you have everything that you need to survive outside of your mom's body. So the mom is trying to get everything in place. All right, at 6 weeks, this is whenever your outer ears begin to take shape. The chambers of your heart have also begun forming at this point, and your muscles are continuing to grow. So you can see in this picture how the ears starting to form up. So again, looks a little freaky, but it's okay. This is an artist's rendition. So you have your features are starting to develop as well. At 7 weeks, you have clearly visible toes and your major organs were established. You're still very small. This is whenever you are recognizable as a miniature baby. Now, you aren't ready to be born yet, but you can tell if you were to see this, hey, that looks like a little tiny person. It looks like a little baby. So again, you're not ready to be born yet, but this is whenever your book's pointing out, this is whenever you have all of your major organs are on the inside. You're still very, very, very small though. So you are now distinctly recognizable as a miniature baby, and all your major organs were established. Now they're not fully grown yet, but all of your major organs are already on the inside. They just have to grow and they just have to get larger. So this is whenever we would say by around week 7 that we would recognize if you were to see a picture of this, notice, hey, it looks like a tiny baby. And also doctors know you have your major organs are on place. They just need to grow and just get larger now at this point. So everything's pretty much there. It just has to get bigger and bigger and bigger. All right. By week 8, this is whenever your most important period of growth was complete. You're safe inside the uterus, and you just need to get larger at this point. You just need to keep growing and growing and growing. This is whenever the baby will start to stretch on the inside, start trying to exercise. The mom still won't feel you yet. Your mom won't know yet that she can feel you on the inside. Now she might know she's expecting by this point. But this is whenever you are starting to move on the inside. Now you're so tiny, she can't feel you move yet, but you're still exercising and starting to move your arms and legs and starting to stretch around on the inside. So you're becoming more and more coordinated as you practice moving on the inside, but your mom can't feel you quite yet. You're still just too small, but you are developing and growing and growing and growing. All right, so week 9 to 10 weeks. This is whenever your lips form, your cheeks fill out, your mouth could open and close, you could even yawn, you're starting to have your taste buds develop, you're starting to have fingernails and fingerprints. This is whenever you start to have your eyelids, and this is whenever your eyes will close at this point. So gradually your eyelids form and I'm sealing your eyes closed. You'll notice in this picture the artist already drew it, so that's not quite right, but that's okay. But just pointing out that, okay, whenever you have your eyelids form up, your eyes will close. Now you can open your eyes later, but this is just keeping your eyes safe. So your eyelids form, sealing your eyes closed. By the 11th week, you're going very, 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 very quickly. I don't think I have a slide for the 11th week. Oh, I did find one. So for the 11th week, this is whenever you're about 14 grams, you measure about 5 centimeters or about 2 inches, so you're still very, very tiny. Your face with this large round forehead, you have a tiny nose and a definite chin. This is whenever your thymus and your lymph nodes are also developing, so you're just growing on the inside. So all your major organs are already there, you're just growing and growing and growing, getting larger and larger and larger. I don't think I found anything for the 12 through the 5 months. I think I stopped at that point. Yep. Alright, so we'll just leave it at this slide while we talk through what's happening in your book. Alright, so at 12 weeks, this is whenever you weigh 28 grams, you were 3 inches long, ribs are now showing up underneath your skin. You could frown, you could press your lips together, you can make funny faces. You could brush your fingers against your lips, so you're starting to get more coordinated. Alright, let's read the verse at the top of page 110 really quick. So my substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. So the psalmist is talking about here how the baby was developing on the inside. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret, because the mom might not know yet. No, by week 11 your mom has probably figured out that she's expecting, but those first couple of weeks, because you're too small, your mom might not even know that she has you yet on the inside. So that's what he's talking about when I was made in secret, and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Now, that's just an expression that the Bible uses, sometimes just meaning that you were made on the inside of your mom. And so even though you're not born yet, you're still you. You're just growing, and you're just not fully ready to come out of your mom's uterus. All right, so now you can go ahead and flip the page. All right, whoops, forgot, we're not quite there yet. All right, so your book points out sometimes you drank the fluid in which you're floating, so drinking the fluid around you won't hurt you. We call that amniotic fluid as a side note. But you're just practicing sucking and swallowing, so that way you can drink milk whenever you're born. So 13 to 16 weeks, this is the 4th month of your life. Your book's pointing out you're going to start switching over to month and time period after this, just so that way it's a little bit easier. This is whenever you are growing more and more and more and more and more. This is whenever your mom will start to notice that she's going to get a baby bump, or she's going to start to have that swelling in her womb area, because her body has to now stretch out a little bit to make room for you. That's the reason why whenever ladies are later on expecting in the pregnancy, you'll notice whenever you look at them that you can tell that they are expecting. That's the reason why, is because their body has to accommodate the growing baby on the inside. The womb's not large enough for the baby to stay just in that area. Your body has to expand outward a little bit, and so that way the baby has enough room to grow on the inside. You can squint your eyes, you can curl your toes, you can close your hand into a fist. Whenever you are awake and active, whenever your mom can feel you now as well, kick or move against her abdomen on the inside. So that way you are practicing your movement. During your less active times, you can notice things around you, you can feel your face. Sometimes you play with your fingers, you might learn how to suck your thumb at this point. Doctors have seen babies do stuff like this whenever they take an ultrasound, kind of like an x-ray of your mom's womb area to check to see how you are growing. Your mom might start having ultrasounds at this point as well. Alright, so 5 months, this is whenever you are getting larger. Even with your knees touch up under your chin, the womb has become a tight fit. So this is about week 5. Now again, this is an artist's drawing of them. But this is whenever you don't really have a lot of space on the inside. Your mother's abdomen starts to stretch at this point to make room for you. So again, you are developing in the uterus, but there's not enough room just in there. So your mom's abdomen or stomach area has to stretch as well, so that way you have enough room as you're continuing to grow. You start to look kind of how you will look like once you're born, so a lot of your facial features are established. By 6 months, your eyebrows and eyelashes are visible. Sometimes other people, they might can notice you move as well. If you had a younger baby, or if you had another younger brother or sister be born, you might have noticed whenever your mom was expecting them that you could see what looked like a bump go across their stomach, or maybe see a bump kind of like form up on the inside of that stomach area. That's whenever the baby or your unborn baby brother or sister was moving around on the inside. It might have been an elbow, knee, or foot, kicking around, exercising on the inside. You can also hear and recognize noises, including sounds and rhythms. Now, thinking back, you might remember this in your reading, or you might just think about it. What's probably the most recognizable sound to the baby? Eventually, it'll be their mom's voice, because mom is talking around them. They can't get away from mom, so because of that, they recognize her heartbeat, and they can also recognize other sounds, but since they hear her voice all the time, that's part of the reason why babies will calm down whenever they hear their mother talking, because they know, oh, that's mom's voice, and they've been hearing it for a very long time. So this is whenever they will start to recognize, oh, that's mom's voice. That's probably the reason why once they're born, moms will talk or sing to their children or the newborn babies to calm them down, because the baby recognizes, hey, it's that sound. It's the sound I've been hearing for a long time. Alright, at 7 months, you can open your eyes. As kind of a sad note, this is whenever at 6 months, abortion is now illegal in the United States. Now, you might think, well, hang on a minute. What's the difference between 5 months and 6 months? They're both, all of the major organs are there already. You're just growing on the inside. So what's the major difference? What happens? Unfortunately, then in the United States, they have decided that it's okay to kill the baby if it's before the 6-month mark. At the 6-month mark, though, they decided that you can no longer kill the baby. And that's just what the courts have decided. This does vary a little bit from state to state. So some states, there are kind of exceptions to it, but most states, it's illegal to kill a baby at this point. And that's very sad in America, that there are laws that say that it's okay for the mom to decide she doesn't want the baby anymore, and she can go ahead and kill it at that point. And that's sad for our country. And I know that this is a little bit depressing, and it's a sad thing, but that's okay if it makes you sad, because lots of babies in America are killed because of this. Now, again, you are you way back here. I'm just at conception. So that's one of the reasons why your book's pointing it out, and that's the reason why I'm pointing it out to you, that once you have that fertilization or conception where you have the mom's DNA combined with the dad's DNA, that's whenever you formed up. Now from that point, you're just growing and dividing. So it is sad in America about how you can have the mom, and typically it's up to the mom. The dad doesn't really have a whole lot of say-so in this, but typically it's up to the mom, to where the mom decides, I don't want to keep the baby anymore. It's not so much the idea, at least in America, of whether or not it's a person. It's the idea of, does the mom want to keep the baby, and does the mom want to have the baby and let the baby be born? And that's that in America, that they decided that the mom has the choice to decide, should she kill the unborn baby, or should she carry it and let it be born? And that's something that you need to pray for our country and hope that those rules or those laws get changed. Because it's really sad that we have laws in America that say it's okay to kill the unborn babies, even though they will eventually become a person. Since they're so small right now, the Supreme Courts and the laws in America say it's okay to go ahead and kill them because they're so small. And that's sad, and that's against the Bible. And I know it's a sad topic, but it's okay if it makes you sad, because that'll help you to remember to pray for people, and to pray for our government, and to pray for people that maybe have a baby and they don't want the baby, but you should still pray and talk to them and tell them, hey, even if you don't want the baby, it's okay. You can carry it, and then you can give that baby to a good family that wants to have a baby. There's a lot of parents that want to have children, but they can't have children. Some of you might even know of someone, maybe a relative or a friend of your parents, that they want to have more kids, but they can't have a lot of kids right now. So that's something to where if they have a baby, or if they have this occur on the inside, to where a young lady might not, where she has the baby, but she's not ready to have one, she's not ready to raise the baby, then she can still carry it, but then she can give it away to somebody else. So, I know your book doesn't talk about that a lot, but it is important to know, and in junior high, it's important for you to start thinking about, to decide, okay, even though in the United States world, if you are a young lady, you're allowed to decide and talk to your parents if you want to have the abortion, but just because you've done something that is considered a sin and that's not right according to the Bible, that doesn't mean you should do something else not right and kill off the baby either. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about now and thinking about how sad that is, so that way as you get older, you want to make sure you want to make right choices. And young gentlemen, if you do something that the Bible says to not do, and a young lady becomes expecting, then you need to encourage her to do the right thing and to help her, so that way she can carry the baby, give birth to the baby, and then give the baby to a family that can raise it. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's move on from this though, because I know it is kind of sad. Alright, so this is whenever at 6 months you can recognize noises, including sounds and rhythm, and you can start to recognize your mom's voice. At 7 months, well, getting close to the 9-month period. So at 7 months, this is whenever you can open your eyes, but they are very sensitive to bright colors. You can't see shapes or colors yet. Your taste buds have developed enough to tell the difference between sweet and bitter. You're starting to develop hair on your scalp. Now again, this picture is closer to the 9-month mark, but you are starting to develop hair on your body. So your hair is starting to grow when you have fat cells or the adipose cells starting to grow, trying to make you not quite as skinny, so that way it'll protect you whenever you are born. Right now, your mom's body is keeping you warm, but once you're born, you have to make sure that you have those fat cells or those adipose cells to help keep you warm, so that way your body doesn't have to work quite as hard to keep yourself warm. Your brain has developed enough to control breathing and swallowing. You can't breathe on your own yet because you're inside your mom's body, but your lungs are starting to develop more fully at this point. They are flat, tiny sacs. There's no air on the inside of your lungs yet because you get your oxygen from your mom's placenta. That you don't have to use your lungs yet. Now, you'll need them once you're born, but right now they don't have air on the inside. Your mom can feel you whenever you're moving around. She can actually feel at this point if you start to get hiccups on the inside. If she feels a slight rhythmic jump on the inside, that's probably you having hiccups because you swallowed too much of the fluid around you. So at 8 months, this is whenever you have tiny, delicate fingernails. You can scratch your face if you're not careful at this point, but it's getting really, really tight in the womb. You're getting ready to be born. Every time you stretch, your feet gets pressed against the wall of the uterus. It's a tight fit, but this is whenever the baby needs to turn upside down in the mom's uterus. Now that's normal. It's supposed to be like that. So that way, whenever you are born head first. That's supposed to happen. Because if you're born feet first, what could potentially happen with the umbilical cord? The umbilical cord could be caught or get stuck on you, and if you're born feet first, the umbilical cord might get wrapped around your neck and might hurt you. And so because of that, God designed it so that way you're supposed to turn upside down and be born head first. So that way you don't have stuff like that happen. And doctors and midwives know that, and that's a major sign that you're almost ready to be born if you turn and flip upside down, so you're ready to come out head first. At 9 months, this is whenever you are ready to be born. Your mom is also ready for you to be born by this point. You are large enough on the inside to survive outside of her body. And so because of that, she is ready for you to be born, and you are ready to be born as well. So your belly comes out, you can't exercise now, you have so little room. You start to become more and more plump because the adipose is forming on the inside. This is whenever your mom will start to get contractions though, whenever you are starting to be born. The uterus will help contract around the baby and help push the baby outside of it. The baby will also help out a little bit by kicking, but that's whenever you hear someone maybe talking about how a lady is going into labor or she's having contractions. That's what's happening, is the uterus is starting to push the baby out, and the baby is being born. So your book points out, as the contractions inch you forward, the opening of the uterus spread wider and wider farther apart, so that way you can come on out. Your head will come out first, and then your shoulders, and then finally the rest of you. Now, the placenta is still attached on the inside of the mom, and the umbilical cord is still attached from you to it. So one of the first things the doctors have to do is cut the umbilical cord, and they need to get you to breathe right away. Typically, whenever you're being born, it's scary and startling enough to where the baby will take that first big gasp, filling up their lungs right off the bat. But sometimes the doctor might have to thump your foot or startle you enough in order to get you to take in that first deep breath to get you to start breathing on your own. So once you cut the umbilical cord, now that's okay, it's supposed to be like that. Once you cut it, a little bit of blood will come out, but that's okay. They'll seal it off, so that way you can start breathing on your own, and all of your organs will kickstart, and they will keep working from then on by themselves. You don't need the umbilical cord anymore. The mom will have to get rid of the umbilical cord, her body will get rid of it, and so that way she can go back, and her body will start to heal itself on the inside, and then your body will get rid of this umbilical cord later on. So once someone cuts your umbilical cord, your mom will rock you and talk to you, trying to calm you down, because typically being born for the baby is kind of startling and kind of scary. Now it is important for the baby to cry to fill up their lungs, and that's probably the reason why your mom will talk to you typically right afterwards, trying to calm you down, and you can recognize her voice, and then she can feed you, and you can both rest after that. So typically, being born takes about 4 to 6, 8 hours, depending on how long that takes. That's probably the reason why your mom is really tired and why you're really tired probably right afterwards. That way you can both rest. Now, once you have have that umbilical cord cut, part of it will stay there for about a week. Since your body doesn't need it anymore, it'll seal it up, and then the umbilical cord part, that cut off portion, will fall off. That scar where the umbilical cord was is your umbilicus, or your navel. So make a note of that on page 114. Your navel, or your umbilicus, that is the scar that was left over from your umbilical cord. So your book's pointing out, okay, from conception until birth, your book is pointing out, here's what happened and here's how you grew. Now you're not done growing yet. If you're in junior high, you still have many more years of growing to do. But your book is pointing out, that's how you got here, or how you were born. That's what was happening on the inside. Alright, let's look at the Bible verse at the top of the page again. So how precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God, how great is the sum of them. So even though no one could see you yet when you were on the inside of your mom's uterus, you were still there and still growing, and now you're still growing and you're turning into your adult body by this point in your life. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about, okay, what did you need to know? Do make a note though over those major terms. So do note of what conception is, what uterus is, what placenta is. You don't need to note the major events. I'm going to give you some thought provokers to help you figure out what major events you need to know. But then also make a note of what the umbilicus or the navel is as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's give you your homework for tonight. This will also help you see what major events, and then that's pretty much it for that section. Alright, your homework for tonight is on page 114, that section review 3.5, the thought provoker 1 through 3. So the thought provoker 1 through 3 on page 114. Now on page 33, we're going to be jumping around and getting you ready for your review. On page 33, you're going to do the chapter 1 review, the identify 1, and explain 4 through 7. And on page 77, the chapter 2 review, the explain 1 through 8. Sure to have this book ready with you tomorrow, because we're going to start using it in class to help get you ready for your exam coming up. So make sure you're using your time tonight to start reviewing, and then use this as well. So your whole homework again, answer page 114, the section review 3.5, the thought provokers 1 through 3. On page 33, the chapter 1 review, identify 1 and explain 4 and 7. And on page 77, the chapter 2 review, you're going to do the explain 1 and 8. Don't forget, the final draft of your background paper is due on Monday as well.